Ladies and gentlemen, peace. There was no way I was going to wear a mask just like that. This is BS. So, the only way, but I'm not going to get a fine either. I'm not giving out my money. And I'm not going to die because of stupid laws and people that are enforcing it that think they're doing humanity a favor. Because if they would have any sense in their mind, they wouldn't enforce it. And the chances that they know how to read is very, very slim. So this is like basically mano a mano. This is between me and the intelligent people. And what does it say? Well, for those who don't know how to read, it says fuck the system. Excuse my French. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Edery, and today we're going to talk about how Christianity was trolled. Until today, they're trolled, and I think that Jordan Peterson was trolled. He's a very, very smart man, but before we get into it, let me show you a small clip. So that's from the Bible series, and Jordan Peterson has earned his respect and earned his popularity. He's more popular than the Prime Minister of Canada, which is not a big deal. Justin Trudeau is truly a very big joke. But in any case, Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, very, very wise man, and he definitely has a lot of things to say. And I was listening to his Bible series while cleaning up my house during the Great Quarantine. And I just can't get enough of it. I watched the first one, I watched the second one, I watched the third one. And he says a lot of great things and a lot of wise things, and he brings in a lot of other psychologists. But there's, just like there's, mixed martial arts. You might be very good at one part of martial arts, but you might not be good at something else. So you might be very good at mixed martial arts, but if there's a professional kickboxer, you might be able to clarify a couple things about how you kick.
So you have the sun here, and then the moon here, as far as I can tell. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think this is the moon over here, but so. Yeah, and that's part of the Sistine Chapel, which is, an absolute...
Some people come from all over the world to look at the paintings and try to figure out what the connection is to God and this and that. It's the holiest place in Christianity. Who painted it? Jews. Till today, I think the Christians never even caught on to how badly they were trolled. And this is a tradition that's passed on within the Jewish community, that the Jewish painters trolled the Christians. Now, I don't know. There's no way for me to go and I didn't do enough research to actually prove that they were trolled and that they did it on purpose. But what I could tell you is that if the Jewish painters were religious, then there's a very big chance that the Christians really got trolled. And I'll explain why. So before we get into the details, first a bit of context, right? So the Greeks and the Romans, the Greeks studied the philosophy of the Bible, and they actually tried to take as much wisdom from the Bible as possible, but they kept it very, very rational as possible as well. They didn't take any of the holiness, they didn't buy any of the spirituality at all. The Romans, they were, they were just involved in kind of a second version of the Greeks, I might say. A little more aggressive, maybe. But the point that I'm trying to say is that when Christianity hit the field, you have a situation where, for example, you had many people that had statues, big statues of men. So they said, all the statues of men are Jesus, because they didn't want to throw them away. Even though it says in the Bible you should not have statues, it's idolatry. But they didn't want to throw it away, so they said, "Oh no, that's Jesus." And if they had a girl, a woman, that's Mary, that's Jesus' mom. And if they had a mother with a kid, then that's Jesus and when he was a kid and his mother. So there was all of that stuff going on. Now, the Romans burnt the temple, the Jewish temple, to the ground. And many historians say that they won the battle, but they lost the war. Because, they burnt the temple down, and the Jews were exiled. And that was the end of the second temple. However, a couple hundred years later, and you see that this whole Christianity thing pops up. And what that basically means is that hundreds of thousands, of tens of thousands, eventually millions and millions of people throughout the world are learning the Bible and praying to a Jewish Messiah. That's almost as Jewish as you can get, besides not being Jewish. So ideologically, they won. Now, I look at Christianity and Islam like the younger brothers of Judaism. They kind of run after the older brother. They think they know what they're doing. They're kind of copying him, but they don't really understand anything they're doing. And let's say the older brother is like 20 years old, and they're like 2 and 3. So that's like the comparison. Like, do not kill and do not steal, which are like the basic principles of Judaism, are still very, very hard for the Muslims and the Christians to wrap their head around. I think. I mean, obviously it's getting a little better and this and that, but there are some very, very basic elements, like even in the Ten Commandments, that it's hard to say that the Christians have it down packed like the Orthodox Jews do. And there's a lot of places where Christianity never really found itself. So there's a lot of it's like a Swiss cheese with a bunch of holes. It's just a mess. There's only so deep that you can go into Christianity without completely realizing that the whole thing is just sinking, sand that's just sinking. But let's get back to the story that we're talking about here. The painters, why do I think, with my knowledge of Judaism today, why do I think that they were trolling the Vatican? Because Judaism's entire emphasis is on understanding that we're selfish, understanding that we care only about our physical self, and we indulge in our pleasures. Okay? Food, having kids, etc., etc. And the entire Bible is directing a person to be humble and to really, really lower his profile. And the Hasidic philosophy, which is the secrets of the Torah, which is the Kabbalah, which is also part of the tradition, basically teaches you how to become zero, how to become nothing, not to care about God, earthly matters at all, and to basically completely fall in love with goodness and kindness and world peace and all that stuff, to a point where you don't care anymore about food. You're going to see pizza, you're going to see sushi, you're not just going to get glued to it like a wild animal. You're just going to look at it like, whatever. And if you're going to eat bread and butter, it's not going to make a difference to you whether you eat bread and butter or whether you eat ice cream. Whatever's for dinner, you just eat it, whatever. So that's the kind of mentality that Judaism tries to bring to you. That's the full package. And obviously, that's like the basic levels. Then you go deeper, you come back to the physical world, but this time you come back and you own the physical world. In other words, you're going to eat on Saturday, on Shabbos, because it's the day of rest, and God said you're going to eat a day of rest. So you're going to enjoy the food because God said you're going to enjoy the food, even if the food doesn't taste good. And it doesn't have to taste good, because the point is to do it right, and you have to be mentally strong. And if you can afford it, good, and you bring guests and whatever. But if you can't, it doesn't matter, because the main thing is that you decided that you're going to enjoy it. So if you can have a bowl of food that technically tastes disgusting, but because you decided that you're going to enjoy the food on Shabbos, on Saturday, in order to bear witness that God created the world in 7 days, so you're going to decide that in your mind you are going to enjoy the food no matter what. That's called mind over heart. That's also one of the principles that Hasidic philosophy talks about. And of course, it's all built on the concept of free choice and the concept of discipline. So, when we talk about idols, that's blasphemy. We talk about anything that has to do with lust, blasphemy. Okay? God doesn't have any image. Okay? There's no way we know how God looks. And that's the whole point of the entire Bible, is to basically strip away any concept of any image in your mind that you might have with God. By the time you're done reading the Bible, you should have it very, very clear that God has no form whatsoever. He's above time, space, and matter. Yeah. So, for them to paint pictures of a guy with a long beard, and then there's a sheet with a crack on the other side, and like Jordan Peterson said in the video, this is the sun and there's the moon, I guess, right? So that joke, basically, that's the joke. It's on the church. That's what it is. It's not just a joke. That's the joke. For a Jew to look at beautiful physique of the human is very, very far from the spiritual elevation, elation, meditation, that he's trying to get to. He has to go to a place where he becomes zero and the only thing he cares about is God. Then he has to go back into the world and turn everything in the world into godliness. So he's going to do business, but he's going to do it without stealing. He's going to be very, very honest, and he's going to be very, very faithful. The same thing is he's going to be very merciful, and he's going to be very, very forgiving, and he's going to build a family, and he's going to respect his wife, and he's going to have children, and he's going to respect his children, and he's going to be as selfless as possible, and he's going to get involved slowly in the world. And the more and more he gets involved, the more and more he has more opportunity to express the way God would want that thing to be done. So, looking at images that are portraying the greatness of the human body, even if it's, so to speak, to compare it to God, let's say, that guy is. It doesn't make any sense. A Jew would never want to do that. So in a synagogue, just for the, there's a law in Judaism. You're not allowed to have any image of anything in a synagogue. So even if there's a very great rabbi, they won't have his picture in the synagogue. And if they do, then it'll be on the back wall, so that when everyone's praying this way, it's on the back wall. And even that is very, very, it's not supposed to be that way. There's no pictures in the synagogue of anyone, because you're praying to God and God only. So that's just one example. And obviously in Christianity you have images of a flesh and blood, which is basically idolatry and everything. Now Jordan Peterson points out that he thinks that there's a concept of in the New Testament of coming to that realization that you can make the laws. As much as I'd like to say that makes sense, I don't think you need to sacrifice the entire Old Testament just in order to get to that concept. In other words, you still need to base the world on a couple principles. Do not kill, do not steal. The 7 laws of Noah, for example. Do not kill, do not steal, respect God, don't curse God, respect the family life, establish courts of justice, and do not eat from the animal while it's still alive. So, avoid animal cruelty. So, the 7 laws of Noah, they're the foundation, they're the cornerstone. You can't just say, we're going to throw it out the window because, sometimes we can change the law. Yeah, of course, sometimes we can change the law, but we can't throw our roots out the window. Okay? We can't throw our roots out the window. Just because and it's true, the Bible does give permission and authority to the Sanhedrin, the 70 sages, when they're established, to interpret the Bible and to come with a conclusion and pass that conclusion on to the people. And technically, the Sanhedrin can interpret the entire Bible and eradicate any practicality and teach it as a philosophy, and basically the Bible technically won't have any physical bearing on any laws. And we do know that when Messiah comes, all commandments will become void. However, we will continue to do them regardless of them becoming void, because of the significance that we will understand. That means by the time they become void, we will understand why they're so important and why they're so worth it to do anyway. And then we're going to do it not because we were commanded to, but because it's good for us to do it. So, but that dynamic has to happen with a process in Jewish law. And it's a little bit complicated. I don't want to get into the whole thing right now, but the point that I'm trying to bring here is that you can't just throw the whole ship out the window just because you want to bring out a point that you can become can come to a part within the law that you just turn it over into something else completely, and you just void it just because the law is not the point. I mean, you still need to make sure you don't kill anyone. You still need to make sure you don't steal, and these things have to be etched into your internal system on a level that does not err at all. And it's because God said so, not because there has to be just a small little bit of you that actually gives God the kingdom of the world. And there's no king if no one's listening to anything he's saying. So it's like a father that his son's like, listen, I don't agree with everything you say, but there's 7 things that I respect you and I agree that you're right. So at least the father has a little bit of dignity, right? So let's go with the basics, right? We're gonna go, and not because we understand it psychologically, but because we understand that the true king of the universe is God himself. Now, where does Jesus fit in? Whatever. We're not going to get into that right now. The point is that in my mind, and in the mind, I think, of an Orthodox Jew, the Jews painting a bunch of naked people, and then probably they looked at the Christian Pope and they're like, yeah, is that good? Is that what you wanted? Yeah, it looks beautiful. And they're looking like, this is beautiful. This is their holy of holies, and we're painting naked people, and they don't even know the difference between an elbow and what kind of? This could be this could be the worst vanity of the world. This could be the worst thing. I mean, this could be why people go to hell, and they have this in their inner chamber, their holiest chamber. And nothing. I'm going to have Adam and Eve, and we're going to have them in their natural habitat, obviously before the sin, and all that crap comes from the whole Greeks running around naked in the Olympics and all that crap, and the Romans being so proud of their big muscular bodies, and all that garbage that has nothing to do with spirituality. As far as I know, the Jewish people were never all about that stuff. So I'm assuming that the Jews that painted those paintings, they got paid very, very well, and I'm assuming that they had a point to make, and their point was that as long as these paintings still are here, you should know that Christianity got trolled, and you should know that this has nothing to do with anything spiritual. And if you want something spiritual, go to the Old Testament, go to the Jews. That's what I think is happening here. But that's just my opinion. And I'd be happy if Jordan Peterson answers this video. It'd be interesting to hear what he has to say. Jordan, if you're listening to this video, my brother's a big fan, and I'm also a big fan. I like you're a very smart man, and there's Nietzsche and Jung and all kinds of random people that I never studied about, so I'm happy to hear you recap them in your videos. Anyway, peace.